I just took out an email that I got. I one time spoke about this Yesod by a OHEL panel event. If you remember, last year I was a panelist for OHEL, and I got a response to what I'm about to tell you from a therapist that I printed out before I came up this morning to share with you. Okay, but let's start from the beginning. When you're sitting by your chassan tish before your chuppah, so the Mesader Kedushin is going to ask you to pick up a pen or something and to make a kinyan to be mechayev you on what it says in the ksuba. And the ksuba has in it financial obligations. Someone, lo yaleinu, passes away or divorces his wife, there are certain financial obligations. But in addition to that, the ksuba also contains a commitment from the husband that he'll take care of his wife the way Jewish husbands take care of their wives. Va'ano eflach va'oiker va'afarnes yosichi lichi kehilchais guvrin Yehudain de farnesin u'moikrin and so on and so forth. The zanin u'mefarnesin u'moikrin. And that means that I will work and I will respect and I will sustain you as Jewish men do, that they work and they respect and they sustain their wives. And that's a commitment. A person makes that commitment, he's meshabed himself with a kinyan, and then he hands over to the kala, under the chuppah, he hands over to the kala that ksuba, in the presence of Eidim, although the Rosh Hashiva holds that Eidim don't have to see that part, but that's what the Vel does. And it's a telling thing, and it's an important thing to recognize this, that there's a sense of going into marriage not merely as a whirlwind of romance, but with a sense of achrayus, with a responsibility. And before I talk about the responsibility in marriage, I think it's important to talk about responsibility because we live, unfortunately, in a generation that's expert at abdicating responsibility. And I want to point out to you places where you may not have associated the concept of achrayus to those places, and to show that they really are about achrayus, in addition to other things. So like, for example, if a person would be sitting in a beis medrash, let's say, and eating something. Okay, let's say a person comes in, the beis medrash is pretty empty, bein hasadarim, he comes in with a little snack and a drink, and that's wonderful that he's learning in the beis medrash. And he leaves over in his place, he leaves over the crumbs, the wrappers, some tissues that he used, he leaves over in that place, so that when someone else comes in to learn, they have to contend with that. So you may have thought that's called impolite. You may have thought that that's called not so nice, and that a nice person clears their plate or their stuff. You may have associated that midah with ha'aracha, with caring about other people. And that's certainly true. Certainly when a person shows a certain sense of hakara, that he shares the world with other people, and that he doesn't want someone else to have to clean up his mess, that's very nice, and certainly it is that way, you know. However, there's also a sense of achrayus. And the sense of achrayus is that I am part of society, and as a part of society, we share a responsibility together that society should run properly. When I'm in a yeshiva, when I'm in a shul, when I'm in a park, when I'm in a public place, it's not just about, if I'm a nice guy, I'll clean up after myself. If you think about it, it's really about, I have a certain achrayus to play my role as a human being. And you find this sometimes, that people, like if no one's looking, the people will leave a mess in different places, and the deficit is not that they're not nice guys. Sometimes they're very nice. The deficit is that they don't consider themselves achra'i on this. This is my achrayas. This is my responsibility. This is my mess, and it's my responsibility. And a person could consider themselves a tremendous bal achrayas, but when push comes to shove and they're in a situation like that, excuse me for saying, but the way a person leaves a bathroom, it's not just a matter of being nice or being polite, it's a matter of responsibility. We share something, we have an achrayas. I see this a lot in the world of yeshiva, but the truth is it translates to the world in general, of families, of shuls, of communities, is that you see this concept of a sense of achrayas. I'll give you another example. We'll do a few examples. I'll get back to marriage in a minute, okay? Sometimes when there's a blood drive, so guys sign up to donate blood. And that's very, very, very special. And sometimes when you ask someone why they're signing up to donate blood, they'll tell you because they care, because it's for people who are sick, or for soldiers, let's say if it was in Eretz Yisrael or something like that. And they want to give blood, and blood is a precious commodity, and it's a tremendous chesed. It goes without saying, it's a tremendous chesed. And I respect that. But I don't respect it half as much as the guy who tells me he gives blood because he feels a sense of achrayas. Because if I'll decide that I'm too busy today to give blood, and you decide that you're too busy, and he decides that he's too busy, and the other person decides that he's too busy, then no one's giving blood, because it's a voluntary thing. So society, do you agree that society has a responsibility that there should be blood available for Yidden that need blood? Yeah, society should provide that. So who's society? Who is that? Who's that person that should do that? I don't know, this thing called society, the yeshiva, the chevra. No, it's made up of individuals, and you're one of those individuals. So that puts you in the crosshairs of achrayas. I think when there's a blood drive, the question is not should I participate, the question is what heter do I have not to? Because if it's a shared responsibility, and I am part of the tzibur, then I have that responsibility. I had this conversation with someone, it's one of the big topics today, and it's a controversial topic. My purpose is not to focus on the controversy of the topic. I don't really consider myself knowledgeable enough to weigh in on the topic, but in terms of the achrayas shabai. Somebody was once telling me that he doesn't want to vaccinate his kids. Okay? There are people that are pro-vaccines, there are people that are anti-vaccines. It's a big tumult in the world today. The Trump administration is making tumults about this, about the role of vaccines. And again, I do not care about that right now, and I am not knowledgeable in that area. That's not my point. I want to make the following mashal. This person told me that he doesn't want his children to be vaccinated because if everyone else is vaccinated, why do his kids have to be vaccinated? You hear that? Imagine that we are all fathers and our kids are in a class. And you come over to me and say, if everyone is vaccinated, it means everyone around my kid is vaccinated. So why should I vaccinate? Everyone else is vaccinated. Do you see a lack of achrayas there? Do you see if your reason for not vaccinating is because everyone else is doing that, isn't that a cheshbon that everyone else can make too? So that means that society, again, I'm not pro or anti-vaccines. I am not knowledgeable about that topic. Okay? That's for another time, another place, another person probably. Okay? That's not for me. But the nekuda, do you hear the lack of achrayas there? Why should I do it if everyone else is doing it? I could get away without it. It's a certain lack of I am part of a tzibur, and I have to carry the weight of the tzibur with the people around me. I think about this often when someone gets up to speak after mincha and yeshiva, and there's a mass exodus leaving. And I understand it's been a long first seder and shiur and mincha, and you have classes coming up. I get it. But I'm asking you this question. If everyone had your cheshbon, so everyone would leave, do you think that that's right? Do you think it's right that the Rosh Hashiva should get up to speak and the room should be empty? Do you think that's right? Okay, I mean, we know he speaks for about max 11 minutes. Okay? Yesterday I think it was 13 minutes. Okay, if everyone gets up to leave, do you think that's right? No, I don't think it's right. Of course the Olam should be there. Okay, so why aren't you there? Everyone else is there. Why do I have to be there? Yeah, but you're part of everyone else. You're part of the tzibur. It's not a question of right. It's not a question of nice. It's not a question of kavod Torah. All those things may play a role. But there's a sense that I'm trying to point out that when you're part of a tzibur, you carry a responsibility with the tzibur. There's an achrayus, and part of the achrayus is to play my role in the tzibur. That's part of the achrayus. That's responsibility. And this is true in families also. I'll get to marriage in a moment. It's true in families also. You know, somebody makes a simcha. How many times have I heard people say, I'm not going to go, don't worry, there'll be other people there. But those other people are just like you. And they also would rather stay home than go out to a vert or a wedding or a l'chaim. So what makes them, they're the shamashim and you're the prince? What makes them more achrei than you? If everyone would make their cheshbon, and I've walked into simchas that are sorely lacking in people showing up, because everyone thought that someone else will go. We had a chasana in Waterbury last Matzah Yom Kippur, the day after Yom Kippur, and it was a chasana of a couple, a 70-year-old man who was marrying a Jewish woman for the first time. Okay, it was very, very, very special simcha that was supported and arranged and coordinated by the community. Okay, and it came time for the chasana. There were more people by that wedding that I've seen by an event in Waterbury ever. There were just so many people there. People that I didn't think had anything to do with this guy. And I did a little research. Why were so many people there? And the reason was, and this is just such an unbelievable praise for a community, it was just such an unbelievable thing, is that each person thought to themselves, I don't think there's going to be so many people there. This chassan akal, they don't know so many people. So everyone made this cheshbon, they're part of the community, and I don't think there's so many people there. I should go. And what ended up happening was one of the greatest Kiddush Hashems I've ever seen. There was dancing. I saw there were grown men, 40, 50-year-old men dancing. Like they had to pull out their dance moves from when they were 20, trying to. It was the funniest and most heartwarming thing to see. You know, these guys that haven't danced lebedik by a chasana in 20 years, dancing in the middle, and it was just an incredible moment to see. That's called achrayas. It's not called nice. It's not called chesed. It's called responsibility. I have an achrayas. I carry an achrayas. I'm part of a tzibur. I carry an achrayas. I'm part of a family. I carry an achrayas. And when it comes to marriage, and this is one of the key, most fundamental things when it comes to marriage, the way I walk into a marriage. Last week we spoke about the concept that I'm a giver. And this is a related but different topic, and that is that when I put a ring on a girl's finger, I now have a responsibility to take care of her. That's my responsibility. Anybody who just thought to themselves when I said it, and she has a responsibility to take care of me, you're not ready to get married, if that was your thought. Okay, now I'm not saying, and perhaps I'll get to it in a few minutes, that the wife has no responsibilities. But if that was the thought process, I have a responsibility and she has a responsibility, then you're not ready yet. Because achrayas means I have an achrayas, regardless of everything else. I have a responsibility to carry this girl. to take care of her, to be there for her, to protect her, to provide for her. That's my achrayus. Very famously, Reb Volba, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, wrote a kuntras lechasanim. Ritz Hashem, when you are chasanim, and probably after you get married as well, you should learn this kuntras. Okay, it's a small booklet, and full of tremendous wisdom. And the booklet begins with a conversation between a Rebbe and his Talmud, where the Rebbe is asking his Talmud on what foundation he's going to build his marriage. And the Talmud said, on love, Rebbe. Ava. And the Rebbe was like, no. Love is definitely an incredible, powerful part of marriage. I wish it upon all of you. And it should continue to grow and flourish. It's a very, very important part of marriage. But it's not what builds the marriage from the beginning, and it's not what sustains a marriage. And in fact, there's something that sustains the love of the marriage. The love has to be in something. And the box that it's in is responsibility, is achrayas. The pasuk says, Ashrei hagever, fortunate is the man, ki yisa oil b'ne'urav, who carries a yoke from his youth. Say Chazal, this yoke, this oil, zu isha. Fortunate is the man. Ashrei, fortunate is the man. How lucky are you? How fortunate are you if you are in a massive romance? No, that's not what the pasuk says. The pasuk says, how fortunate are you if you're carrying a yoke from your youth. Oil zu isha, that's a wife. And I want to tell you something. If you think that I am making marriage less colorful, or less enjoyable, or less fun, you're completely missing the boat on marriage. Completely. Okay? Because the men who feel connected and in touch and satisfied and joyful and full of love are the ones that understand that marriage is built on responsibility. I don't have to be in the mood. I am responsible here. And that's the ashrei. The pasuk says ashrei. You know this word ashrei? Ashrei is a word that carries with it so much satisfaction. Ashrei yoshvei veisecha. Ashrei is a word that the Torah uses to describe the most fortunate person, is Ashrei. And Ashrei hagever ki yisa oil b'ne'urav, as you carry your marriage with responsibility. When I meet couples and they're arguing over who's doing what, or I do A, B, and C, so you should do D, E, and F, like this kind of like making sure that we're equal here, what we're doing. When I meet couples like that, I feel so sad for them. Because on both ends, usually, they miss the boat of what it is. I would love to meet the couple, and those couples are out there, they just don't need me. I'd love to meet the couple that's like, my wife does so much, I don't think it's fair. I think I should be doing more. It's not right. Why is she the one who's carrying the whole family? I should be carrying the family. I want to meet that couple. That's where, and I'm not going to meet that couple. You know why? Because they're not going to wind up in my office. You know why? Because they're going to be living a life that you could only dream of. Because the husband went into his marriage, va'ano eflach, va'oiker, va'afarnes, I will work, and I will respect, and I will sustain, because that's my job. And that's my job that I became an eved the day that I got married. I want to say for the record that when you get engaged, and some of you are married and you know this, that when you get engaged, there are people that will make jokes to you about how terrible marriage is. Okay, it's in very, very, very poor taste when people do that. Okay? I remember when I was a chas, like, oh, Mazel Tov, you became a chas, I'm so sorry to hear that. You know, things like that. It's a reflection of an external secular culture that looks at marriage as if like the fun is over, and it's a complete falsehood, it's a complete sheker, and it usually is a strong announcement that this person has a miserable marriage. I don't know why they don't realize that that's what they're saying. But like, if someone is truly unbelievably happy in their marriage, do you think they make cynical jokes about marriage to chasanim? And the poor taste of saying to a chasan a bad joke about marriage. What are you trying to do over here? You don't want the guy to be excited? Like, what are you doing? Like, the guy just got engaged. Explain to me and the real answer is that they're not thinking. They're just advertising their own happiness, right? That's really what it is. So I'm not a fan of that at all, okay? It's not just mentioning, like it's a complete distortion of the way that a person should be treated when they take upon themselves that achrayus. But the emes is that there's not only is it not that you're taking an avdus on yourself, but this is royalty. This is greatness. And if you take it on the right way, you will feel that. And you will experience that. That you take on a marriage, that this is something that I have an achrayus here. There's somebody here for me to take care of. People like sometimes, it's a poor midah. It's like a weak midah. But people like sometimes for their wives to do things for them, and they don't realize that it's degrading for your wife to do something. If I'm walking out of my house with my wife and she's holding a garbage bag, I'm embarrassed. What kind of a husband are you? She's holding the bag? No, isn't that embarrassing? I'm late. What is she my shifcha? She's my queen. I'm not letting her in front of other people, even not in front of people, but I'm just saying, she's like taking on this. No, I'm the one that takes on. Ashrei hagever ki yisrael b'nurav. This is my job. I want to do this. You know, if I'm driving with my wife and we need gas, and we pull up in a gas station, and she's like, "Let me do it." Like, please don't embarrass me. Please don't embarrass me. That God forbid someone who knows me will see me sitting in the car while my wife is filling it with gas. What am I, a caveman? What kind of a thought process is that even? My wife is royalty. When it's time to get gas, I'm the one pumping the gas. That's my job. I am going to do that. You're a guest somewhere, you're a young couple, and you're a guest in someone's house, and you show up at their house and they show you to the guest room and you realize that there's a bed and an air mattress. Not what you signed up for. Hashem help the guy who turns to his wife and says, "Look, I'm working, you're not. I need to sleep, I'm very tired, I'm going to take the bed." Hashem help that guy. That's not, what are you? Like, what are you? I think bears probably take better care of their wives than that. Of course, it's the man's job, and it should be with pride. This is what I am. I'm a husband. Husbands take care of their wives. That's what I am. It's my identity. It's my achrayus. It's my mahus. This is what I am. I'm a husband. Of course I'm going to do that. Now, is it possible sometimes that a wife starts treating her husband like her personal valet and has him like serving her in a way that's inappropriate? Yes, it is possible. It's much less common than you think. Sometimes husbands feel that way because we fail to truly understand the amount of responsibilities and achrayus that women and wives are dealing with. So yes, while your wife is getting the baby ready to leave for Shabbos, she may be sending you to the car 40 times and asking you to make a bottle and do this and that, and you feel like you're just being sent on errands, but, spend, as some fathers here know, spend 6 hours taking care of your kids when your wife is not home, and suddenly you'll have a new respect for her. So very often a husband feels like he's being sent to do these things. No, she's running quite the operation here, usually. Again, can it be taken out of proportion? It can be. But that's not where we come into the marriage. We come into the marriage, we have achrayus, We have responsibility, and it's our job to take care. I'm here to take care. I'm here to carry you. Okay? Could you imagine the sight of a husband and wife in their brand new apartment? They're married for 2-3 months, and the wife wakes up the husband and says, I think I hear someone downstairs. Someone's walking around our apartment. And the husband's like, could you check what it is? Can you imagine the pathetic husband that does that? I look at when husbands don't carry their wives emotionally and physically and assisting them, I look at it in that way. Like, look, this is your job. Is that clear that that's the husband's job? Is that clear? Is there any doubt? That is the husband's job. You saw the news that there was this Israeli cab driver that you saw the news about this Israeli cab driver yesterday? So this guy is bringing in a older woman somewhere, and terrorists start shooting. And you could see on the video, you could see the bullets. Like, it's a frightening thing to see. And this cab driver gets out of the cab, goes around the back, because he went around the front, he wouldn't be alive anymore. Goes around the back, opens the door, and helps this lady out and brings her to safety. Under a hail of gunfire. Okay? Now, there was a call between the president of Israel and this cab driver, where he told him what a hero you are. And the guy did what everybody, all those civilian heroes do. No, I'm not a hero. Anyone would do it. You know. But the truth is that if you watch the video of him doing it, there is only one explanation why a person would do such a thing. And that is that he felt achrayus. I have someone in my cab, it's my job to take care of them. And I feel very motivated by that. Because if there's a Yid out there, a holy Jew out there, that because a lady was in his cab, he felt an achrayus, to put his life in danger, to take care of her. What if he was married to her? How much more so a person should be able to put himself out there. You don't have to put your life in danger most of the time. But to put yourself out there to care for her, to be there for her. And these things come up. You may think I'm talking about several dramatic things that come up over a marriage. I am telling you, and every married person knows, I'm talking about things that come up several times a day. It's getting close to the evening, and your wife says, and you're getting really tired, and your wife says, could you please go to the drugstore? The doctor prescribed some medicine for me. I really want to start it tonight. Could you please go and get it? What kind of a husband says, you know what, I'm very tired, let's just start the medicine tomorrow? That's not achrayus. Can that happen? 50 times a day it could happen. That's not achrayus. My wife needs something, it's my job to take care of it. That's my job. That's what I'm here for. It's my job. It's my achrayus. How many times I've seen a husband that will go to sleep or be settled down, you know, that after the meal when you can't move, sitting down on the couch, picking up hopefully a kosher magazine and, you know, just relaxing after the meal because you can't move, and the wife is running back and forth between the dining room and the kitchen, cleaning up and setting up. What kind of a husband could watch his wife work and slave away while he's sitting on the couch? How is it even possible that someone who made a kinyan on the eflach v'oiker v'afarnes, that he could allow his wife to be toiling away while he's sitting and watching her? How could such a thing be? And this is our achrayus as husbands, to carry our wives, to support them, to be there for them, not because we're so nice, not because we deserve a prize, not because we're waiting for a compliment, but because we are husbands, and that is what husbands do. We're proud of it, it's our identity, and we do it. So I was by this panel, and some kind of similar issue something came up, and I said my mashal that I always say when I give this share, okay? And I saw, for those of you that haven't heard it, I'll say it again, but I said this mashal, and that's what I got an email about this mashal. You didn't know about the email. So I said over, the guy is at home, his wife is expecting. Women, when they're expecting, we'll talk about it in another shiur, but they could often wake up in the middle of the night extremely thirsty and sometimes hungry. So she wakes up her husband and nauseous. She wakes up her husband in the middle of the night, and she's like, could you please go downstairs and get me a glass of water? I'm parched, I need to drink something. And the husband gets up, and he starts heading down the stairs, and here's where my story comes in, my made-up story. Where I say that, okay, and I tap the guy on the shoulder, and he's half asleep, and he looks at me in my fantasy story here, and I say, what are you doing? So I'm going downstairs, and my wife needs a glass of water. And I say, so why you go? Why don't you just tell her to get it herself? And what does the husband respond? So I always say that there are three possible responses. One response is because she'll kill me if I don't, or some variation of that. Okay? That's a terrible response. Okay? It might be true, but I do not feel jealous of a husband that's taking care of his wife because he doesn't want her to make a ruckus. That's not the proud husband that we're talking about today. There's another guy who's going down the steps, trudging, half asleep. Then you ask him why he's going to bring his wife a drink. He says, because I love her. And that's a kind of sweet answer. And oftentimes it could be true. Okay? Husbands in a good marriage, Baruch Hashem, they love their wives very, very much and would do anything for them. But that's not the best answer. Because feelings of love, you will discover, can be minimized a little bit at 3:30 in the morning. Okay? You're going to find that. Okay? It could be that the love you feel for your pillow may exceed, at that given moment, the love you feel for your wife. Okay? I don't mean that in a global sense, but in the moment. You could see that? In the moment, that could be. So because I love her is wonderful, but it doesn't carry the moment all the time. The response of a Ben Torah, the response of a husband who got married with a sense of Ashrei HaGever Ki Yisa Oil B'Ne'urav is, why am I going to get her water? Because I'm a husband. And that's what husbands do. That response carries the day. And through the difficult times and through the great times, and if there's incredible love there, it's not a stira, it just adds to the pain. And oftentimes saying that will remind the husband of how much he loves his wife, because of how fortunate he feels that he took responsibility for this particular woman, to take care of her and to connect with her and to be there for her. So I got this email. And the email said as follows. I hope it's okay, but I would like to share some information I believe could help guide your responses to the Bachrim. I recently worked on a couple's curriculum for the young Jewish couple. It focuses on building and maintaining connections. Before beginning the project, I interviewed and spoke with community rabbis, mental health professionals, and lay people to get a better understanding of the issues that need to be addressed. One issue that came up, which I feel is relevant here, was commitment. In your presentation, you described an anecdote of an expectant wife waking her husband up to get her a glass of water, and that he should feel it is his achrayus to do so. Unfortunately, I learned that men in particular are quick to walk away from the pressure, commitment, and burden of responsibility. I wonder if you would consider pivoting away from his responsibility and offer a "we are in this together" feeling and response. That small distinction sets them up as a team working together to build their bias. That's what I'm saying not like. Yes, I know, good, and I'm saying not that way. This is exactly what I'm saying not that way. I will not change the mashal. Okay? Because Because men in particular are what was the lashon here? Are quick to walk away from the pressure, commitment, and burden of responsibility. So therefore, you're saying, in your disrespect of men, you're saying that men are quick to walk away from responsibility, so don't talk to them about responsibility. And I say no. Men are built by HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be mekabel responsibility, and I will inspire my Talmidim to be mekabel achrayas and to commit themselves to the achrayas of taking care of their wives. And if she's dealing with an unfortunate segment of society that has a hard time with commitment and needs to settle for the we're in this together model of speaking to men, I feel terrible for that. But in our world, that's not, we're not here for we're in this together. Rabbi say, of course, we're in this together. You know that. You know. Maybe we'll do a shiur on we're in this together. Of course, there's a partnership and a yachas and there's responsibilities on both sides, of course. But that's not what today's shiur is about. Today's shiur is about, it doesn't matter if she's doing her achrayas. We're in this together matters, right? We're in this together. Well, so what if she doesn't make me dinner? Do I still have to get her a glass in the middle of the night? What if she's a bad housekeeper? You know, when a girl gets married, part of the idea is that she's going to do my laundry. But in my marriage, I'm doing the laundry. So let her get the glass of water. That's what happens when you start the we're in this together thing. Rabbi say, what I am here to say is because I respect the men that I know, especially the men in this room. I respect the men, and I think they are capable and poised and ra'ui to be mekabel responsibility and commitment, is that you should not start measuring the we're in this together and what she's doing and what I'm doing, and you should say, I am a husband, and even if my wife does nothing, I have to deal with that. Maybe I have to speak to a rav, maybe I have to speak to a therapist, but it doesn't change my responsibility. I have an achrayus here. I have a responsibility. And I am going to do my responsibility because I am a husband. Just even if, Rahman al-Islam, a wife is not able to fully be a wife for whatever reason, it doesn't alleviate my responsibility to be a husband. And that's the kuda here. I thought she summed it up so nicely, exactly what I do not want to teach. I thought it was a very good, well-spoken opposite exactly of what my point is. My point is exactly not like that. My point is, yes, we are men. We were built to accept responsibility. I wonder if she would suggest that we change the language of the ksuba and say, and we will respect each other and we'll take care of each other. We could put that in the ksuba if that was the right thing. But no, that's not what the ksuba says. If you'll notice, the wife doesn't write a ksuba of her responsibilities to her husband. She does have responsibilities that come along with marriage, and a woman, a wife, would do herself a tremendous service by being sure that she understands and is able to accept those responsibilities with geschmack and with a sense of joy. But that's not our perspective right now as a bunch of men that are thinking about marriage. What we're focused on is commitment. Commitment and burden of responsibility. Burden of responsibility. Does that sound a little bit like Yisa Oil ben Urav? Yes, that's what the Torah says. Yes. And that burden, you know what the description of that burden is? Ashrei. How fortunate is a person who carries that responsibility. So my bracha to all of you is that you should prepare yourself and strengthen yourself, that when the day comes that you find a girl that you want to marry and that you're ready to stand under the chuppah, that you be mechazek yourself, that there are responsibilities here, and taking care of her, and being there for her, and supporting her, and providing for her, and meeting her needs is my responsibility, and I couldn't be luckier than being able to stand under that chuppah and accept those responsibilities on myself. And Hashem should give you all the siyata d'shmaya to find the right person with whom to accept that responsibility, and that you should be able to live with the joy And I say this very specifically with the joy and geschmack of being makabel this responsibility. I am a husband, and that's what husbands do for your entire marriage. My bracha to you is that you should be 95 years old and walk over with your walker. You should walk with your walker over to your wife and say, "Can I get you a drink?" And then balance the drink on your walker while you bring it to her, because you stood under a chuppah 70 years before and you said, "I will respect my wife." And how fortunate will your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren be to see their Zaidi through the years that he treats his wife like his queen. And there's nobody that's more like a king than a person who treats their wife like a queen. Yashar Koyach.